Hey guys, welcome to Young Money. I'm Nozi Pombanjwa and this is CNBC Africa's freshest and youngest offering. It's about us, the ones who want to go beyond the hustle, the ones who are keen on breaking the bank. Now, in today's Wealth Gems segment, we're going to be talking to Douglas Kruger. He's an internationally renowned author and motivational speaker. I've got his latest offering in my hand, Relentlessly Relevant. We're also going to Discovery Insure. We're catching up with their executive director, that's Themba Baloyi, and hearing from him how his journey has transpired over the last few years. And he is, of course, a young mover and shaker on the continental landscape. Douglas Kruger, internationally renowned author and motivational speaker, has a powerful message to share with us today. And this message is about distinguishing yourself from the rest of the pack and differentiating yourself from your competitors. He is the master of owning your own industry and becoming an expert in what you do. Douglas, thank you. Lovely to have you as always.
Awesome to be chatting with you.
Now, before we get into the conversation, let's quickly address our Young Money questions.
Hi, my name is Sebelela Kheleni. I'm 19 years old and I'm an entrepreneur. I founded my own startup company called items.co.za, which is an online store that sells every item online. How can I be the next Amazon?
So here's a young man, he wants to be the next Amazon. How do you get to that big target?
Well, what a fabulous level of ambition to start with. I mean, that's absolutely brilliant. And he's already on the right track with that goal to conquer the world. You've got to think that big. Now, there's a study that was conducted in 2014, so still very recent, that works in his favor. It's the right time to be thinking the way he is. The study found that South Africans are not responding as well to legacy as what they used to, and are responding much more strongly to how you innovate into my world today.
Right.
So his idea of toppling the big old existing giants, now's the time to do it.
And so this also means it's about out-innovating the legacy, if we may call it that. How practical is that approach? What do you need to be thinking about to get onto that footing?
Well, exactly as you said, out-innovating the legacy. The danger for the legacy brands is that they're self-referential. They talk about how long they've been around, how big they are, how great they are. So the opportunity for the new guys is not to use that language. It's to speak something different, to talk about how you are disrupting the market, doing something completely different, and what's different about you. And I'd say that's probably the most important mind shift up front, is while trying to be the next Amazon, you don't want to be Amazon. So you've got to find something that actually disrupts the whole business model and changes things. You've got to be like the Netflix to rent video rental stores.
Got you, absolutely. So one of the things that makes me nervous about the whole innovation space is that it really comes across as a sexy word, a buzzword, and one that could die as easily as black being the hot thing this season.
Yes.
So how do you ensure that you remain relentlessly relevant?
You're spot on. The word itself is almost a problem because it becomes part of the marketing department rather than how we do things and how we live. But let's not get hung up on the idea that it's the new buzzword. I mean, innovation is what we do as a species. From the start, we've been building ideas one on top of the other. And the way human innovation works is kind of like an inverse pyramid. First person comes along and puts down a block, an idea. The next person looks at it and goes, hey, I can see how I could put two ideas on top of that. The next person adds three.
Right.
Now, person number three couldn't have put those three there until the first one was there. And so the pyramid grows. And it opens up what we call, and this is the cool, sexy term for us today, the adjacent possible. I think that's a great way to pick up people in bars. Say adjacent possible with confidence.
I'm going to try that one.
But it really just means, so the heart and soul of innovation is being aware of this ever-expanding adjacent possible. And it's simply going, that's pretty cool, now imagine if. And that's innovation in a nutshell.
So let's take a step back from the very meaningful advice and insights that you're sharing right now. Let's get back to Doug. How have you ensured that in your own personal journey that you've consistently reinvented and out-innovated in your own competitive space?
Well, thank you for noticing. I like to use the term constant producer. There are certain things that kind of inspire you as a human being in terms of what you want to be and do. And for me, the description constant content producer is kind of what I want on my gravestone.
Right.
And it's the idea that you are not just regurgitating or rehashing what is, it is that, as you say, you're reinventing yourself and you're putting out into the universe. And for me, the art of positioning yourself as an expert is really giving out value and then coming up with the next thing. But now there's also a lot more to that. Sometimes it's about being counterintuitive. When everyone says, well, this is the way we're looking at the world, you go, hang on a second, there's a different conclusion we can come to. So it's about the courage to have your own voice, to speak strongly about different ideas that other people might not agree with, and to put yourself out there.
So one of the things that we'll hear in our next conversation is about conviction and really believing in your idea.
Yeah.
How important is this, especially when you're trying to penetrate a market where what you're putting on the table is something that's totally new and nobody has yet embraced this new way of thinking? How important is conviction?
You know, the reality is ideas themselves are actually a dime a dozen. We've all had these flares of genius and moments of inspiration. The courage to drive it through is the biggest part of innovation. And it's the courage to, I like to say, take your idea to 50. So 50 is just an arbitrary number. I reckon most people take their idea to about a 10 and they get their first no and they back off to 0. And really getting an idea into the market, I mean, you might get up to 48 and the funding drops through and you have to start again. You've got to push it through to 50 because without you championing your idea has no legs. You are the only thing driving your own idea.
Now, one of the things that comes through strongly from your insights is a very strong entrepreneurial mindset and entrenchment in how you see the world. If you were to give advice to an entrepreneur who wants to play in the innovation space, what's in the toolkit? What would you say to them? These are the things you cannot do without.
Okay. The first thing is the courage to go, I'm not going to go the job route. And I think most people don't have the courage to take that jump. And yet I believe that, as Randy Gage, an author in the States, says, risky is the new safe, and vice versa. Safe is the new risky. The longer you are employed, he says, the bigger the target on your back grows. So it's the courage to say, I'm going to go my own route, and then to jump into it and actually believe in it. And then it's really some business acumen. You've got to take the dreamer. The dreaming comes first, but then you've got to have the business acumen on top of that, because you're going to be pitching ideas, you're going to be trying to attract a target market and so on. You've got to be able to speak the language. So it's this combination of dreaming and competence, and those are the two that we've got to work on in equal measure.
Well, I couldn't have said it better myself. Relentlessly relevant. Douglas Kruger, business author and an internationally renowned speaker, giving us some insights as to how to ensure that you continuously out-innovate your competitors. A very big thank you to him. We're about to sit down with the Executive Director for Discovery Insure. He is described as one of Africa's global movers and shakers. That is Themba Baloyi. I quickly want to talk about this idea that we in South Africa, we have brown-eyed boys and girls now, and that being black and young is what's going to get you. Actually. And that's what I want to test with you.
It doesn't exist. You've got to work for everything that you want to achieve. I think it's so old-fashioned, but it's so true, and it's so present even in today's day and age. A lot of people think that it's about connections. A lot of people ask me, how much skill versus connection? I say you need both. Right. You need the skill, you need the connection, but above all, you need the hard work. You need to infuse yourself into that context of understanding that it's not just about the fact that I'm a chosen. There are no anointed people out there. Even if you were anointed, there are smarter and brighter kids that will come along. So it's about hard work, it's about immersing yourself deeply into what you want to achieve.
Your toolkit, if you were to say to any entrepreneur who's wanting to penetrate the market with any product or any service, the must-haves, what would be in there?
For me, it has been a blessing indeed to have mentors along the way. I've had mentors right from the time I entered into the work environment, into a formalized work environment, and I've kept them through my journey. Because one of the key things that I've come to accept is that they've got wisdom and they've got an understanding. They've seen things happen which I may not have had the opportunity to be exposed to. And in fact, there's a book that I read some years back, and there was a line that stood out for me. It says, I don't have the luxury of eternity. So if I am going to succeed, I would need the experiences, because it commences with the fact that experience is the best teacher.
Right.
But I don't have the luxury of eternity. If I'm going to succeed, I must learn from those who have been on the journey. And that's one key element that's missing a lot where people want to succeed. I see it even with very experienced business people. Those who are groundbreakers, those are the people who are still consulting their mentors, going and saying, you know what, I need to confide in someone because I'm between a rock and a hard place. I find that a lot of young people and a lot of young entrepreneurs, they lack that understanding. Right. We think you can become a self-made man. That's a lie from the pit of hell. It doesn't exist.
So mentorship is a very important part of that toolkit. But here again, when we're talking to younger people and we begin to talk about leadership and their styles of leadership and how they see leadership, it's also interesting in how they see and perceive leadership. What's the Themba understanding of what leadership entails, and in particular what leadership requires in a context where we've got changing dynamics and we're seeing very difficult headwinds facing corporate South Africa?
I think for me, a simple definition of leadership is that you've got to be able to serve. You've got to be able to deliver something substantive on the table. Servant leadership is what is missing in many organizations and in many environments where I've been exposed, where people think leadership is about asserting your authority, is about asserting who you are. Leadership is actually about delivery. It's about serving. So servant leadership for me comes up top of mind as one of the key elements that we should be inculcating in our communities, particularly in business, where people know that when I'm in business, when I start a business, such as Discovery Insure, if you look at the business, it's got a big responsibility of employing 500 plus people. And that responsibility is not to be taken lightly because their families extremely dependent on what we do as a business. Over and above that, we've got clients who expect us to deliver. So it's not about being a boss, it's about delivering something of service, something of relevance on the table.
Now, I don't doubt that the youth label follows you wherever you go. And so if we move from the premise that you're young, whether you agree or not, what's next? What are the big things that we should be expecting to talk to you about in the next couple of years or so?
It's interesting to talk about being youth. I'm involved with young global leaders at the World Economic Forum perspective. So those things for me, where we try to set the agenda, a global agenda about what needs to happen. Entrepreneurship in Africa is one of the key elements that the young global leaders are looking into. We're looking at how to uplift Africans out of poverty. So that responsibility is heavy on our shoulders. It's not something that we can be taken lightly. Of course, I've chosen business as a mechanism to deliver on that, but certainly there's so much work to be done. So in the next few years, the dream is that there won't be many people living in abject poverty, and hopefully the levels of unemployment will be reduced drastically by then.
A very big thank you to Themba Baloyi, Executive Director of Discovery Insure, for sharing his personal journey and his leadership insights with us. Thank you so much for making the time to join us, and don't forget that you can be a part of this show. If you want the Young Money crew to come to you, all you need to do is tweet us, #YoungMoney, and ask us your question, and we'll help you take your business to the next level, and of course we'll help you try to break the bank. Until next time, let's keep it rich, let's keep it real.